So my journey to diagnosis with chronic fibrosing ILD with progressive phenotype started in late 2008, 2009, where I was training for a half marathon and my times just kept getting slower. And even after hiring a coach and training a little harder, I just finally hit a 4-mile run one morning where I almost passed out. And I decided that that was the moment where I really needed to go see my pulmonologist, or where I needed to go see my primary care physician. So she did a chest x-ray and thought that I had pneumonia. So she put me on a course of antibiotics. I didn't improve. She put me on another course of antibiotics. I didn't improve. So she referred me to an allergist, and I underwent a full battery of allergy tests. Happy to report that I'm only allergic to tumbleweeds. Then I finally was referred to a pulmonologist, and he ordered a CAT scan and identified two things. First, I had blood clots in my lungs. So that was the acute situation and had to be dealt with immediately. And then the second thing that he noticed was that I had what he called a prior insult to the lung, and that there was fibrosis. And he flagged that and he said, you know, we really are going to have to watch that. So we did kind of watch and wait for about 5 years until 2014, when I had a bout of pneumonia, for real this time, and had another CAT scan. And I gave that CAT scan to my pulmonologist, and he compared the two, and he saw that there was progression from one to the next. And he said, you know, this looks to me like interstitial lung disease. I'm going to refer you down to our main campus and to the ILD clinic there. And I want them to take over your case from there. So at that point, so that was 5 years. And then in 2014, it took about 6 months then once I hit the ILD clinic, which is at a center of excellence. And there was a whole battery of tests that I went through. And it started off with a meeting with my new pulmonologist, who's an expert in ILD. And he told, you know, he was really clear. He explained like what that was going to look like and what the journey was going to look like to the diagnosis. So it was in October, late that year, that he diagnosed me with chronic hypersensitivity pneumonitis, or CHP. So the most frustrating part of the diagnosis for me was just the time that it took. And that's mostly just because I'm impatient. And I thought that it would this is going to be something pretty simple. And, you know, like in a couple of weeks, we would have, you know, we'd have a diagnosis. And then once I talked to my new pulmonologist, and he explained like what that whole diagnostic path needed to look like, I could see that it was going to take a few months to do. And then I kind of reset my expectations and reset the expectations of everybody around me. And then I was able to just kind of sit back and go, all right, it's just going to take whatever kind of time it's going to take. The other frustrating piece of my diagnosis journey particularly is that we don't know what my antigen is. And because we don't know, I never know if I'm being continually exposed. So that's a little bit frustrating. It's just something I've had to learn to live with, but it's like that little unknown that sits out there. And kind of every time I encounter something new, I sort of wonder, is this going to make, you know, cause an exacerbation or not? So during the time that it took me to be diagnosed, what I understand now is that I was losing lung function, that the fibrosis was worsening, and that was going to have a long-term impact on my health. At the time, I didn't really notice it. I was short of breath on occasion. I climbed Mount Evans with a couple of girlfriends. I didn't use oxygen. I didn't know that I needed to use oxygen. And that was almost a complete disaster. I think I just want to end it at that. The other thing that happened to my health during that time was I noticed that now that I like reflect on it, my level of activity became reduced. I was always really active, cyclist, runner. I stopped cycling. I was doing less running and more walking. I looked at other places for exercise.